There's a specific suffocating kind of silence that exists only in the most unforgiving, desolate corners of our planet. It is not the silence of peace, nor the silence of a calm winter night. It is the heavy, oppressive silence of a predator patiently waiting for its prey. A silence that effortlessly swallows the desperate cries of the dying, burying them beneath an infinite, indifferent ocean of white. In the deep, brutal winter of 1959, the northern Ural Mountains held exactly this kind of silence. It was February. The air itself was not just cold, it was a physical weapon. Temperatures plummeted to a mind-numbing 30 degrees below 0 Celsius. A climate where human breath freezes mid-air and exposed flesh begins to die within minutes. This is an environment where humanity is simply an anomaly. We are not meant to survive here. We are only allowed to pass through, if the mountain permits it. For weeks, a massive, frantic search party has been navigating this hostile white abyss. Military personnel, local indigenous trackers, and student volunteers are hunting for ghosts in the snow. 9 highly experienced Soviet hikers have vanished without a single trace. The vast, monolithic peaks of the Urals offer absolutely no clues to their whereabouts, only howling, violent winds that sound almost like mocking laughter echoing through the canyons. But as the searchers push further into the deep snow, approaching the eastern shoulder of a treacherous dome-shaped mountain, they finally spot a dark, geometric anomaly against the infinite, blinding white. The mountain they stand upon is known to the indigenous Mansi people as Kholat Syakhl. Translated into English, the name carries a chilling, ancient prophecy, the Mountain of the Dead. It is a tent, or rather, it is the collapsed, heavily frosted, half-buried remains of one. The rescue party approaches with heavy, sinking hearts, expecting to dig out the frozen remnants of a tragic but mathematically ordinary winter climbing accident, an avalanche perhaps, or severe hypothermia. Instead, what they find beneath the snow will become the darkest, most terrifying unsolved mystery of the 20th century. The tent is completely abandoned, but it is the physical state of the heavy canvas that immediately freezes the blood in the investigators' veins. The thick fabric has not been torn apart by the savage mountain winds, nor crushed by the weight of falling snow. It has been slashed, sliced open from the inside out, a frantic, desperate, jagged vertical cut made by someone trying to escape, not the deadly elements outside, but an unimaginable terror inside. Inside this frost-caked, claustrophobic shelter, the silence deepens into pure madness. Everything, absolutely everything, is meticulously left behind. Heavy winter coats, thick wool blankets, navigation equipment, diaries, cameras, axes, and all of their boots remain neatly arranged in the darkness. In a landscape where stepping outside unprotected means absolute, certain death, these 9 seasoned survivors had deliberately fled into a pitch-black, -30-degree blizzard. Outside the slashed canvas, the investigators find 9 sets of footprints leading away from the camp, descending the steep slope toward the ominous darkness of the dense pine forest below. Some footprints show the faint texture of wool socks. Others are completely, horrifically bare, pressed deep into the untouched snow, frozen perfectly in time. These tracks capture the ultimate manifestation of primal, inescapable panic. Before we descend into the bloody nightmare of that night, we must look back at the light. Who were these 9 souls, swallowed completely by the mountain? They were not reckless amateurs. Led by the brilliant 23-year-old radio engineering student Igor Dyatlov, this group consisted of the absolute brightest sparks of the post-war Soviet generation. They were hardened veterans, certified Grade 2 hikers who were utilizing this exact expedition to earn Grade 3, the highest and most difficult mountaineering certification available in the entire Soviet Union. They were physically hardened, mentally disciplined, and trained extensively to survive the absolute worst the Russian winter could throw at them. Their objective was a grueling 2-week winter expedition to the summit of Mount Otterton. The journey began with the boundless warmth and invincibility of youth. Grainy, black and white photographs recovered from their abandoned cameras show smiling faces, playful snowball fights, and the invincible aura of young people challenging the limits of the world. But fate, it seems, operates with a morbid, calculating sense of humor. On the second day of the grueling trek, Yuri Yudin, one of the original 10 members, fell severely ill. An agonizing, crippling pain in his sciatic nerve rendered him entirely unable to continue. Heartbroken but pragmatic, Yudin embraced his friends, turned his back to the mountain, and began the long solitary solitary walk back to civilization. He carried with him their final farewells, completely unaware that his agonizing physical pain was a disguised, miraculous blessing. He would become the sole survivor of the Dyatlov expedition. The remaining 9 marched forward, leaving the absolute safety of the known world behind, crossing the threshold into a sprawling, white nothingness. On the late afternoon of February 1st, 1959, their meticulously planned route encountered a massive delay. A violent, blinding snowstorm, a sudden whiteout, pushed them severely off course. Realizing they were losing daylight rapidly and visibility was dropping to 0, Dyatlov made a fatal, historically inexplicable decision. Instead of hiking just 1 single kilometer down into the tree line, where the dense ancient pines would offer vital, life-saving protection from the wind, they pitched their tent on the completely exposed, barren slope of Kholat Syakhl. Perhaps it was a rigorous training exercise. Perhaps they were simply too exhausted to backtrack. Whatever the reason, they anchored themselves directly to the face of the Mountain of the Dead. Night fell like a heavy iron curtain. The temperature plummeted into the dark abyss of 30 degrees below 0. Inside the cramped, dark canvas, they ate a simple cold meal of speck and crackers. They removed their heavy outer gear, settling in for a bitterly cold but entirely survivable night. And then the timeline of history fractures. Sometime in the dead of the night, something happened. A catalyst so deeply terrifying, so contrary to all human logic, military training, and survival instinct that it shattered their minds completely. We do not know what they heard echoing in the dark. We do not know what blinding light or terrifying shape they saw, but we know the desperate result. A hunting knife blade tearing frantically through the thick canvas. 9 people plunging through the jagged, frayed hole into the blinding, freezing darkness. No time to lace a heavy leather boot. No time to grab a life-saving wool coat. Just a blind, chaotic stampede down the treacherous rocky slope, stumbling through the waist-deep snow, moving as a singular, terrified organism, driven by pure, unadulterated terror. The footprints show they were not running in a disorganized scatter. They miraculously stayed together, moving rapidly toward the tree line, fleeing from the unseen, unimaginable terror descending from above. The search party follows these ghostly frozen footprints for nearly a mile, descending into the dense, dark woods at the very edge of the mountain slope. Here, beneath the sprawling monolithic branches of a massive ancient cedar tree, the true horror begins to unfold. At the base of the towering cedar, the investigators find the pathetic, blackened ashes of a desperately small failed fire, and beside it, the first 2 tragic bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. They are stripped down completely to their underwear. Their pale, hardened skin is frozen solid, dusted with a thin, mocking veil of fresh white snow. But the macroscopic details paint a picture of unimaginable physical agony. Their bare hands are stripped of skin, blackened heavily by dirt, severe frostbite, and dried blood. Above them, the thick wooden branches of the massive cedar tree are violently snapped and broken, reaching up to 5 meters high. Jagged, sharp splinters of wood hold microscopic fragments of human skin and flesh. Someone, bleeding heavily and freezing to death, had climbed that tree in the pitch black. Were they desperately trying to break wet branches to feed a dying fire? Or were they climbing high into the canopy to look back up the mountain toward the tent, watching, waiting for whatever drove them out to finally leave? Just beyond the heavy tree line, leading back toward the unforgiving mountain slope, the searchers find 3 more bodies: Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. Unlike the 2 resting beneath the tree, these 3 are frozen in harrowing, dynamic poses of a desperate, agonizing crawl. Their faces are pressed deep into the ice, their stiffened, frost-bitten hands reaching out toward the mountain peak. In their final agonizing moments, against the paralyzing, hallucinogenic grip of late-stage hypothermia, they had realized their catastrophic mistake. The terror at the camp had passed, replaced by the immediate, undeniable reality of freezing to death. They had tried in vain to crawl back up the steep slope to the ruined tent. The cold simply took them mid-stride, turning them into statues of regret. 5 bodies found, all victims of severe, undeniable hypothermia, a deeply tragic but seemingly scientifically explainable end. But the mountain was not entirely finished with its morbid display. It kept its darkest, most disturbing secrets buried beneath 3 meters of solid packed snow. It wasn't until May, when the spring thaw finally softened the hardened earth, that the remaining 4 hikers were discovered, deep inside a dark, rocky, waterlogged ravine, 75 meters deeper into the dense woods. As the medical investigators pulled the deteriorating bodies of Ludmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotaryov, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, and Alexander Kolovatov from the freezing, shadowy meltwater, the entire official narrative collapsed into absolute, terrifying madness. These 4 individuals did not simply lay down and freeze to death. They had suffered massive, catastrophic physical traumas that completely defied all geographical and medical logic. Thibault Brignol's skull was heavily fractured, compressed violently inward. Zolotaryov and Dubinina had suffered massive structural chest fractures. The official state autopsy report compared the devastating internal damage to the sheer horrific force of a high-speed car crash or a military-grade concussive blast wave. The atmospheric pressure required to shatter human ribs in such a precise manner is immense. Yet, hauntingly, there was absolutely no external damage, no severe lacerations on the skin, no soft tissue bruising. It was exactly as if an invisible, crushing weight had materialized entirely from thin air, pulverizing their bones without even scratching the surface of their skin. And the disturbing physical anomalies did not end with crushed bones. The skin of the recovered bodies exhibited a strange, highly unnatural orange-brown hue, as if subjected to rapid chemical aging. And then there was the unimaginably gruesome state of 20-year-old Ludmila Dubinina, found kneeling over a small dark waterfall in the ravine. Her face was subjected to a horrific, unexplained reality. Her eyes and her tongue were completely missing, surgically removed from her skull. The official Soviet report states it was simply the natural work of decomposition and scavengers in the moving water. But standing in the heavy shadow of the mountain, scientific logic feels like a fragile, desperate illusion. As the autopsies concluded behind closed doors, the Soviet authorities noticed something else, something that triggered an immediate, ironclad response from the state military apparatus. A routine Geiger counter sweep of the victims' recovered clothing revealed incredibly high, dangerous levels of radioactive contamination. Beta radiation clung tightly to their sweaters and thick canvas pants. Why would innocent university hikers, camping in the middle of a pristine, untouched wilderness, be heavily coated in industrial radiation? Declassified Soviet documents later revealed terrified whispers from other independent groups camping 50 miles away that exact same night. Meteorologists and hikers alike reported seeing strange glowing orange spheres, massive orbs of light, hovering silently over the northern sky near Kholat Syakhl. Were these the glowing exhaust plumes of secret R-7 intercontinental ballistic missiles being tested in the atmosphere? Was the blinding flash and deafening roar of a highly classified weapons test the ultimate catalyst that drove the hikers screaming into the night? Did an experimental parachute mine detonate in the air above the tree line, creating a concussive shockwave so powerful it crushed the ribs of the hikers hiding in the ravine, leaving no external marks? We will never fully know the truth, because almost as quickly as the investigation was aggressively opened, the heavy, suffocating hand of the KGB violently slammed it shut. The lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, was abruptly ordered by high-ranking officials to dismiss his findings regarding the glowing spheres. The entire region was immediately sealed off to all civilians and hikers. For 3 full years, the investigators were quietly, systematically reassigned. The case files were heavily redacted, stamped top secret, and buried deep in the impenetrable vaults of the Soviet archives. The official government conclusion, typed coldly and firmly onto a sterile document, stated only that the experienced hikers died due to an unknown compelling natural force. A compelling natural force. Carefully chosen words explicitly designed to silence questions, but which only birthed endless, terrifying legends. Was it an incredibly rare, perfectly silent slab avalanche that swept over the tent, crushing their morale without leaving a massive debris field? Was it the geographical phenomenon of a Kármán vortex street, a terrifying aerodynamic quirk where hurricane winds blowing over the mountain peak create inaudible low-frequency sound waves? Infrasound, a dark, vibrating frequency that perfectly resonates with the human eyeball and nervous system, inducing severe, irrational, suicidal panic, literally driving them completely mad with a horrific sound they couldn't even consciously hear. Or was it simply the paranoid state itself, systematically erasing the accidental witnesses of a devastating military experiment gone terribly wrong? The Dyatlov Pass incident remains a haunting, monolithic monument to human fragility. 9 incredibly bright spirits, violently extinguished in the freezing dark. Their frantic barefoot prints have long since vanished, replaced by over 6 decades of fresh, indifferent snow. The mountain stands completely silent, keeping its darkest secrets locked permanently deep within its frozen earth. Nature swallowed their screams without hesitation, and the empire buried the undeniable truth beneath layers of red tape. We look deeply into this dark mirror of the past, desperately searching for clear answers, but finding only our own reflection staring back at us, our innate, primal fear of the unknown, of the suffocating dark, and of the crushing, indifferent power of the world around us. History is not dead. It only waits, silently in the cold, to be finally remembered.